All right. I'm sure most of you are aware of this. A little while ago, a WNBA athlete got arrested in Russia while traveling over there to, I don't know, do sports ball. I assume that's what she was up to. And it turns out that there was 1 microgram of weed somewhere on her luggage or something. I don't know. So the Russians, they arrested her, right? Brittney Griner? Oh, then why were people... How does it help for me to ask Griner or Griner, and then people just type her name? What are you, stupid? I can see her name. I know her name. If I have trouble pronouncing her name, obviously I already have the info that is her last name spelling. You're supposed to spell it phonetically. Okay. Anyway, she's like apparently a 2-time gold Olympic medal athlete, which like I didn't know from the way people talked about her. People just talk. I think this is like a WNBA thing, and it's so funny the way conservatives pretend they care about like the sanctity of women's sports, and then like when she got arrested, they were like, "Oh, yeah, WNBA, yeah, like gold Olympic athlete, you know, 2 times." Also, the conservatives didn't like her because she like protested the murder of Breonna Taylor by not saluting the flag or some shit. I don't care, whatever. Anyway, our president Joe Brandon finally traded for her release. He did have to let a weapons dealer out, a Russian weapons dealer. He did have to leave him out, and the weapons dealer then immediately went over to the Russia and started like promoting the same fascist rhetoric that the party does. So that's not great. However, here we got her. Brittney, how you doing? Tell us how you're doing with your own voice.
I'm good.
What's your mood?
Happy?
Happy? Well, are you ready for a flight?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Ну, вы знаете, куда вы летите?
Do you know where I'm heading to?
No.
No?
No. Вы летите домой.
You fly back home
To the U.S.
to the US.
Да, конечно.
Okay.
Так что все будет нормально.
Everything will be fine.
I'm good.
What's your...
That was awkwardly cut, but there you go. Yeah, she can't believe it when the video was taken. Like, oh yeah, I'm going home. You know, she was arrested for less than a gram of hot oil. Me too. Anyway, I know what you're thinking here. You're thinking, wow, it's a video of a star American athlete being informed that she's not actually going to rot in a freezing Russian prison. Conservatives took another lesson from this entirely. Now, you might have heard from her voice adjectives like tired, weary, maybe depressive, maybe 6'9" athlete. But some conservatives heard man. We're doing it, lads. We're doing Michelle Obama 2.0, okay? There were a bunch of posts when this video came out of conservatives saying like, that's a what's the Austin Powers quote? That's a man or something. The bit, I don't know. Yeah, the Transvestigator bit. So I want to talk about Transvestigation a little bit and also about racism. It's pretty much the I've never seen a woman IRL challenge. Yeah, 100%. It's very much like I have never heard of the concept. I have never perceived a butch lesbian. We're talking a 6'9" butch lesbian athlete. Come on, okay? Her vocal cords are raking across the gravel. Obviously, it's a simple evolutionary mating strategy as a 6'9" butch lesbian athlete. Leaving aside, like, the logistics of this, like, the idea that... And there are a lot of conservatives who are fully running with this, by the way. The idea that, like, she's actually a trans man. Sorry, that's from their framing. Trans woman, so, like, trans but is a man, There's the framing running off with this. And we can, like, sort of address the logistics really quickly, which is, like, she's done nude photo shoots. She's an athlete, which means that every single cell in her body has been scrutinized by medical experts. The idea that she's secretly trans is impossible. It's completely impossible. It's not doable. It's not possible. It's insane. It's psychotic. Anyone who sincerely believes this should legitimately be admitted into a mental institution. It's a whole thing, But I want to talk about, like, the actual emotional logic behind it. Because the last time this happened prominently, I think, this whole, like, mainstream Republican Transvestigation thing was also, if you can believe it, with Michelle Obama. the extremely biologically male-looking woman who actually looks like a woman, like just like she looks like a nice lady. I don't know. Oh, here's a photo from 2 days ago. Man, it really doesn't crack, does it? Ah, yes, those biologically male ears. I don't know. I think the Michelle Obama conspiracism came from, there was like a photo of her in a dress where the fabric around the crotch sort of folded and bulged outward, which, as you know, doesn't happen to biological females. Biological females, when they sit down, if the cloth does fold, it folds inward as it's absorbed into the vagina, you know? It just sort of tucks in there. So it was like a dead giveaway, a photo of her wearing cloth that folded outwards. That gave the whole game away. And thus runs like this, you know, insane multi-year conspiracy, which, if you want, you can find tons of conservative comics, and the younger amongst you might not even realize this, but tons of conservative comics where Michelle Obama has a bulge from an implied penis. Like thousands of comics like that. Mainstream Republicans, up to and including some pretty powerful pundits that have leaned into the idea that she's secretly a man. Why is she secretly a man? I don't know. I don't know what purpose it serves, outside of the goal of making Michelle Obama, and therefore Obama by proxy, Barack Obama, disgusting and repulsive. That is actually the only goal of this. The only reason they do it. There's not like an end goal. It doesn't serve some broader. It's for its own sake. And the own sake is just to make them demons. Because to a lot of conservatives, that's exactly what trans people are. And now we have it again with Brittney Griner. You know, probably going to not take off quite as much because, you know, not the first lady, but the same basic logic. It's not a coincidence that this frequently happens to black women in particular. You know, the accusation of being mannish has long been weaponized against black women. It's not at all surprising that it would kind of manifest in that way. You know, to those who are surprised that the Republican Party and their constituents might be kind of racist, you know, it's welcome to this realization now. I think it's part of like a reflexive bias. If your goal is to incite feelings of disgust in people, playing off their biases is the way you do that. So any latent racism is going to be like an easier playoff than if you were trying to pull this shit with, like, I don't know, Taylor Swift or whatever, right? I also saw, I was Googling around a little bit for this, and in lieu, they did this to Gaga. They've done this to a lot of people. They've done, depending on the level of transvestigation, they've done this to like everybody. They did this to Kyle Rittenhouse, which, hey, you know, jury's out on that one. It happens all the time. The real question is, like, where does it trend, right? Where do people actually care? Where is it done by psychotic people, and where is it? I mean, it's done to me. It's literally been done to me. There are people who speculate that I'm a trans woman or a trans man. It doesn't matter to a lot. It goes around. But anyway, while I was Googling around, I did see this answer on Quora. Quora, right? Which I don't want to show. But the question is Brittney Griner a man? I'm glad I looked further into this. And the top answer, who has 2.9 thousand answers and 7.1 million answer views, to tell you the kinds of people who sit around answering questions on Quora. I think Griner is intersex. According to photos of her when she was small, she looked like any other little girl with pigtails and a dress. I like how she lists characteristics that have nothing to do with biological sex. I think she was born intersex and the parents decided to raise her as a girl. But when she got much older, the male aspects manifested much more than the female. Voice, Adam's apple, size, height, size of feet, size of hands, lack of female physicality in the hips, chest, and butt. Have you seen that body profile head-to-toe nude photo of her in the photo shoot she did? You can't see any genitalia, of course, but her buttocks are fully exposed, and they are the buttocks of a grown male, not a grown female. Yes, I think she was intersex, and the parents made a decision when she was born. But now she is manifesting more as a male than she ever will manifest as a female. I do not think at all that she or anyone else did anything in the way of being transgender. I guess this is like the enlightened centrist response. I just saw this and it was so funny. By the way, this answer was recent, but another answer comes from before the recent, before she was arrested in Russia. I'm not convinced she is a woman in terms of actually being born female. She has an unmistakably male voice. I mean, come on, women do not sound like that. not even women who have unusually deep voices. And instead of babbling on with excuses about how the male voice could possibly happen to anyone who would present such excuses, why not just admit she started out as a male who went female, or tried to, or as a female who wants to be male? I'm not sure which is true, or if there is some other transgender permutation of reality here which explains it all. I just know that whatever the explanation is, it points to something that is abnormal. And to all who would tell me it's none of my business or that I shouldn't even care, hey, guess what? She's in the public eye. People are going to talk. I ain't the only one stopping to take a look. Get used to it, because that's just the way it is. Those are the two top answers to that question. So obviously we're dealing with some pretty severe brain damage here, you know? Some high-level stuff on display. She did a nude photo shoot with, I think, ESPN back like 5 years ago or something, which I'm currently looking at right now, and she looks like a tall woman, if you can believe such a thing. She does look tall. That's true. You got me on that one. Keep in mind, this is because of her goddamn voice. So, again, I feel like it would be a massive waste of time to explain why this is retarded, and I should instead kind of like scale back and talk about why this is happening to begin with, right? Can we do that? Does that work? I think that should be the focus. I feel like that's more productive than whatever else we could do with this. Okay? So, I want to talk about like, how do I lead this? It's the Trans Inquisition. In a way, it actually is. I could go back to the Salem witch trials, or at least the cultural concept of witch trials, for an example. We could go back to like the McCarthy era or the Red Scare. There are a ton of places we can go with this. The fundamental here is a moral panic. Okay, you know, right now we're dealing with like another satanic panic in America right now, where with the Balenciaga stuff in particular, there are a bunch of people who are like freaking out, like, here's an image of an adult standing next to a child, Satan, Epstein, Satan, so on and so forth. We get a lot of this, you know. Yeah, did anyone here see the recent not trans panic, moral panic, some more news from Cody? Yeah, some more news. Yeah, did anyone see that? It's a good bit, you know? If you can stomach the comedic stylings of Cody, which, you know, your mileage there is going to vary a little bit, but it is a great video. He makes great videos. The idea basically is that a moral panic on the most fundamental level is when a large portion of society is riled up into a hysteria over an evil within that they perceive to represent a fundamental moral threat to the fabric of society, and that they need to weed out. One of the things that defines a moral panic is its participatory nature. It's not enough to believe there are problems in society. Everyone has to get on board with rooting them out, right? Like, the McCarthy era wasn't just McCarthy saying that he had the names of communists working in government, lying about it and getting humiliated publicly. Also, he said he had the names of homosexuals in government, in case you were wondering if there was more of a parallel to like the queer, you know, modern queer zeitgeist. It was also like every guy on the street, like regular citizens, were doing everything, like they were keeping an eye out for communists, you know? You know the term Pinko? You've probably heard that used in like retro, like 1950s Fallout-esque kind of. The term Pinko meant like liberal who was sympathetic to communism, right? Because the commies were red, so the sympathetic types were pink. You see? Like, the idea was like, it wasn't enough whether or not you were a commie. Being a Pinko was enough. It meant you were sympathetic. A moral panic is defined by this kind of group hysteria. They did the same thing with the Jews in Nazi Germany, of course, where it went beyond like, you know, you know how nowadays when you see Nazis online, they're calling literally everyone Jewish based on like insane head math, where even the slightest relationship to a person they perceive to being coded Jewish means that they're themselves Jewish. That's not a new thing. Under Nazi rule, you know, being Jewish did not begin and end with being ethnically or religiously Jewish. You could also be culturally or politically Jewish, which you're never gonna guess. They call a lot of people culturally or politically Jewish. Cultural Bolshevism, was like the insipid, insidious creep of communist, which they consider Jewish, ideology into German life. That's the modern cultural Marxism theory. The whole idea, it's rooted in the paranoia. That's the point. Now, bringing all of that back, right? Like, what are we actually, like, what's the relationship here? Well, the relationship is that randomly accusing public, powerful people of being trans isn't just about making them repulsive in the eyes of conservatives. It's about instilling paranoia in those conservatives to do the same themselves. Do you understand? See, the moral panic relies not just on centrally controlled and disseminated public callouts. They need everyone on board with this. And the idea of like a subversive conspiracy to trans our children and queerify our society, thereby destroying Western culture, all of that works a lot better when your average conservative is suspiciously keeping an eye out for the people around them to see which of them are secretly trans. The conspiratorial element functions best if you have literal operatives. It's not just enough for there to be ideological operatives, because people are generally pretty forthcoming about being like liberal or pro-trans, if they are. You need like secretive operatives. You need people who warrant that level of paranoia and suspicion. And so you have the transvestigation panic. Generally something partaken in deranged British TERFs who like will go to the supermarket and get like a bottle of water and then write up like a 4,000 word blog post on how the every single like worker who interacted with them is secretly trans based on their hip to waist ratio. That's one side of things. But broadly, I think there's a real political threat here. You know, there's a real political. Where do you think that saying, "We can always tell," leads to? Right? Like, we can always tell. On one hand, it's, you know, you'll never pass, which we know that plenty of trans people pass. These can't always tell. But doesn't it seem like it's instilling in these people a kind of confidence in the ability to root people out in hiding? Right? Like, doesn't that seem like the point a little bit? We can always tell. We are investigators. We can see through your deception. We're ready. We're not going to be fooled by you. Not just you, an actual trans person, but by any of you people, up to and including, say, for example, you know, possibly cisgender people who they want to incite a kind of like mob disgust against. Everyone get where I'm getting at here? That's the point. That's the point that I'm getting at. That's the Brittney Griner thing. That was the Michelle Obama thing in like a proto stage. You know, I mean, that was back before like the trans panic had ever like even really kicked off, you know, in its modern form. Yeah, we can always tell is a statement of intent, not fact. Exactly, Kanye. Perfect way of saying it. Yeah, we can always tell isn't an assessment of the world as it is now. It's a statement of like, we will build a world where you people are rooted out, you know, whatever it takes. You people being a very, very broad categorization in this case. Moral panics, pretty dangerous stuff. And don't underestimate them either. These satanic panic tendencies may seem laughable from the outside, but unfortunately they're actually quite dangerous. So let's let's keep an eye out on that. Example, yeah, like how they have, like, remember that bill from I think Florida? At any time, a student athlete can be forced out of their athletics if a parent like makes the accusation that they're trans, and then they have to be subjected to a medical examination to prove they're cisgender. Was that Florida? Sounds like it was from Florida. That seems Floridian in nature. Oh, that's Ohio? Okay. Yes, the Penis Inspection Day bill. There are a couple of Penis Inspection Day bills now. Soon, American children will grow up imagining Penis Inspection Day as a normal, everyday part of their lives. Ah, yes. Fantastic. Utah schools secretly investigated if winning female student athlete is transgender. An athletics association scrutinized the winner's records after parents of two girls who lost the competition complained. This is going to be happening all the time everywhere now. Anytime a female athlete does well, secret investigation, or public, to determine, you know, like the child's genitalia, I guess. It's always sore loser-ass parents do. Oh, yeah, they're like the bane of society, for sure. The girl's high school determined she was female after pouring through her records since kindergarten. Not to get too intersectional with you guys, but this also means that for younger people who have more sparse records, maybe they have parents who weren't able to afford to get them, like, consistent medical care, immigrants, children of immigrants, aren't going to have as clean of a paper record of their medical history and will therefore be more vulnerable to accusations of being trans because they spiked the volleyball really good that one time or something. Yes, Florida's new transgender sports ban permits schools to require genital inspections of children. Just a classic stuff. But it is a world of terror and scrutiny. Finally, we have a moral panic united with the social and technological apparatuses of a surveillance state. A brave new world we're entering. Truly fantastic stuff.